caliber. That's why you went and needed a number one guy. For games like this, when you are going to have to go up against a really good defense and you just need a guy to be a guy, like be a dude, like to make play.
But not just a guy.
Not just a guy.
Here's a guy.
Here's a guy. But this is a game where, like, I think this is a lot of one-on-one individual battles. I'm all over my words here. It's just word soup right now.
Word salad. I can't.
Word soup.
You're so close.
He's right on the edge of...
Oh my God, it's word soup.
I was going to say something mean, but I won't say it.
So close.
You're
so
right
close.
there.
Oh.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell, getting ready for this Bills-Ravens game. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Everyone getting ready for Sunday. We have our 5 players to watch in this Bills-Ravens divisional round on Sunday, 6:30 kickoff at Highmark Stadium. All right, let's start with Michael.
Yeah.
James Cook.
All right, so everybody's going to talk about Derrick Henry, and he deserves to be talked about, right? He's had a great year. And James Cook's had a really good one. I mean, Derrick Henry's, going to closing in on 2,000 yards.
He made himself laugh.
Well, I am very funny. But I would say this, if you're James Cook, you're not going to be Derrick Henry after this game, but you can say, hey, I'm pretty good. I'm not the guy who got in the Pro Bowl. I'm not the guy who's getting the all-pro stuff.
Yeah.
I've had a heck of a year, and I've had a huge impact on this Bills team.
Definitely.
Not at the level of Henry, which adds to another conversation. But James Cook's been pretty damn good for this team.
Yeah.
And this is a chance to show up against the elite. We talk about that with the quarterbacks. Derrick Henry's right there this year with Barkley. Like, they are the 2 best. And I think James Cook's going to want to show everybody what he can do.
He's the second most important playmaker besides Josh Allen. He has become that this season. So I think there is, when we think sometimes about like the running game, I do think it's going to have to be some explosive plays. It is going to have to be breaking a 20-yard run. It is going to have to be not just the 3, 4-yard, 5-yard carries. I think he's really going to have to hit a big one to kind of make an impact on this game, Jenna.
And we've seen him do that in other moments throughout the season. I think of the Lions game in particular, where he had a nice run, broke it free, able to score a touchdown. But Mike, I agree with your point of, I think it's Derrick Henry, phenomenal player. But if I'm James Cook, I'm like, hey, I'm good too. So I'll see you out there and I'll see what plays I can make.
This is the moment to do that. Not only is it the playoffs, but this has been such the conversation. And like I say, Derrick Henry has earned that. But if you're James Cook, you look up to a guy like Derrick Henry. I think any back would. But at the same time, you know the way players think. Yeah, I love this guy. I can compete. Now, obviously, just like the quarterbacks say, they're not competing with each other.
That's the
They're
dumbest
competing
thing.
with each other.
That's the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
I find that so...
I get why you do that, though, because I think it's to kind of... It's already so fever pitch that I understand why people are like, oh, it's not Lamar against Josh Allen. If I'm Josh Allen, I'm like, I need to like tamp things down, because the narrative that sets up, it's like you have to be perfect. And in these games, you have to not make mistakes, but being perfect is very hard to come by.
Right, but it doesn't have to be star players going up one-on-one against one another. It's like in a baseball game, if there's 2 great pitchers, well, they're not on the mound together at the same time. Like, it's so dumb. Like,
yeah, I hear you.
This game will be, we're doing the 5 questions because it's other players outside of Lamar.
Right. And Josh. Yeah.
The 5 players.
Yeah.
But it is a game that is 100%. We're viewing at this as, and so when you say like, well, and I get it, Josh, but like the narrative of like, when people are like, well, they don't actually play against one another. No shit. I'm not.
Well, actually, they don't.
I'm not asking like, Josh, how are you expecting to tackle Lamar? Like, that's not the point. But
yes,
it's condescending to be like, well, they don't actually play against one another. I'm aware.
Yes.
This is still 2 massive stars that have the biggest impact on the game. That's why we look at star matchups.
It's the competition within the competition, but there's no doubt it exists. Like, they all know it.
Well, actually, they don't play.
Yes, we know that.
And like, I appreciate the snarkiness from the player.
Like, well, Dan, sometimes pitchers bat in a game and they have to bat.
Like, I understand the snarkiness from Josh of like, well, I've never actually been on the field against him. But I get that, because that's almost pushing back on like, what do you want him to say from the media? But when other people correct somebody else in the media to be like, you know that they don't actually play against, they've never actually played against. Shut up.
Nerd. That's what you sound like.
Shut up.
No, I hear you. I get what you're saying. I also understand from a player's standpoint of like trying to make it less than it needs to be, even though obviously, especially this game on Sunday, like everyone is waiting to see what will happen.
And one last thing on James Cook. He did not get the votes. He is a quiet guy, right? He's not the guy like Dion talked about. You got to be your brand a little bit.
Got to advocate. Honestly.
That is not James. You know what speaks loudly in a game where there is going to be how many millions of people watching?
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't want to play well no matter the time, but it would be a pretty good time to put that on the map.
And I took that personally.
Yes.
All right, another guy that stands out, Dan, is Amari Cooper and what he can add to this Bills offense.
Yeah, this is why you went out and got a guy like Amari Cooper. That's why you went and needed a number one guy. For games like this, when you are going to have to go up against a really good defense and you just need a guy to be a guy, like be a dude, like to make play.
But not just a guy.
Not just a guy.
Here's a guy.
Here's a guy. But this is a game where like I think this is a lot of one-on-one individual battles. I'm all over my words here. It's just word soup right now.
Word salad.
I
can't.
Word soup.
You're so close.
He's right on the edge of.
Oh my God, it's word soup.
I was going to say something mean, but I won't say it.
So close.
You're
so
right
close.
there.
Oh.
Okay, we might have to bleep that.
That's a good open though.
Okay. All right, keep it going.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
Yeah.
But we've talked about it before, the fact of it's been one of their weaknesses of needing to find wide receivers and playmakers for Josh Allen. You went out and got him to be for games like this. You didn't need him for week 14 through 15 or 16, any of those things. You need him for these big games here.
I'm going to ask Jenna a question.
Okay.
Has Amari Cooper been a disappointment?
Yes. But
Wow.
much like Curtis Samuel.
That's kind of mean.
Shut up. Much like Curtis Samuel last week against the Broncos.
Show up.
The regular season, that chapter is closed.
Yeah.
What can you do in the playoffs and how can you be a benefit to this team? And obviously Curtis Samuel stepped up against Denver. So what can Amari Cooper do now?
I had it in my head a little bit, and this will come to the next player too, about when I asked Josh that question. You guys remember, it wasn't even specifically about that, but he offered that we're holding some stuff back.
Yeah.
Now, I really don't necessarily believe they weren't throwing the ball to Amari Cooper in the regular season. Maybe they weren't throwing it as much to him as they could, and there would be opportunities. It does open stuff up, and you even have seen it in the playoffs so far. You know, teams do some things a little differently, and they can really catch people off guard because I think they fall into these tendencies and numbers, and when they try to match up with a team, and when you're a team like the Bills that has had it pretty good over the last month, you can afford to do that. So it could be, hey, you know this, it could be one play, one play in the game, and then it's worth whatever you had to do to get him.
I'm saying he's been a disappointment. He was a disappointment in the regular season, but now it's the playoffs. So what can you do now when you didn't show up in the regular season?
And last week going up against Surtain, like that's a number one guy. So like I understand maybe, hey, he's covering him. Like we're just not going to look his way.
Yeah.
This is a spot where you're going to need to score some points. And I don't know, I just feel like this is got to be a game where that position group in general has to step up. I think there's going to have to be big plays made through the passing game. And I'm looking at Amari as the guy that they brought in for this spot.
I love saying guy.
But
I agree. I do think he can step up in this moment. He has obviously been a very productive receiver in his career.
Right.
And I think that this is a spot where you can rely on him, even though in the regular season he might have not had as many catches.
Right.
All right. Next player. We talked a lot about Matt Milano, but let's talk about Terrell Bernard. He did not play in the earlier matchup earlier on in week 4 when the Ravens ran all over the Bills. Now he will be on Sunday on the field.
The importance of Bernard just starts with look at that game. He wasn't on the field. Look at last year they lost in the playoffs. He wasn't on the field.
Yep.
And he is so important to this defense. He appears to be fully healthy. I mean, as fully healthy as a guy is at the end of a season. He's so important, and he's a bit of a traffic cop. Put him in the spots.
We say every week.
Yeah,
every week he's
moving
guys,
players,
get into
D
spots.
lineman everywhere. He knows that
he's going to be
defense.
doing that to me in the box. This.
Oh,
No,
Mike in the press box. Do you see that?
Hey, look at him over there. He's doing it right there.
He's over there.
I just offer up word soup while I'm in the press box.
That was good. That was well played, Michael. Well done.
Word salad.
Any more on Terrell Bernard?
I think it's the whole. I think he makes everybody around him better. His impact of just simply being on the field, like you talk about, assignments, alignment, all of that. And I've said I think Milano is going to be a massive part of stopping some of that RPO or trying to contain some of that RPO from Lamar. He looked the best and healthiest he has looked.
Fast.
Yeah. And Sean said that, like, give him grace, like to work his way back up. Maybe he was too hard on himself. Now just go back out there. Like, he was a guy that at times, I know Lamar broke his ankles once. I think it was like in 2019.
Yeah.
But he also made a bunch of tackles on him later in the postseason in 2020. So, like, he can be a guy that contain Lamar. He's one of the rare, like we've said, he's one of those rare guys that can cover linebackers or running backs. He can cover quarterbacks that are mobile. He can do all those things, tight ends. So this is a game where I think he has a massive impact on everything the Ravens want to do.
I have another question for Jenna. Are you surprised that Milano went on Baltimore radio and ripped Lamar?
That was wild.
The fact that I'm not shocked that got community noted, because obviously it was not true, but it just was so funny to me that of all the players you could have picked, it was Matt Milano.
Yeah, it was some relatively
it's a parody account.
And they put out that Matt Milano was talking trash.
Well,
and he doesn't speak.
I think, how many times have you interviewed Matt Milano? I can remember twice in his career in Buffalo.
Yeah, he says
maybe once at camp.
You know, when I remember is when we interviewed him by Zoom after he signed his contract. Do you remember that?
Yes,
the extension of the contract. But no, he doesn't. We don't even ask him.
We don't even ask.
No.
Yeah.
No, because he clearly doesn't like to talk
He's
to us,
never been at
fine.
a podium after a game.
Which is fine.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. And he
is a man of few words.
Which is,
What did Sean say? He says a few more to me.
Yeah, then he
a
does
few.
Yeah.
And so that was funny. So obviously, if you read that, you know that was crazy that he didn't say that. The other linebacker is Dorian Williams, and there hasn't really been a role with Milano there. If you're holding something back on defense, it's not, I don't believe it's put Dorian out there and get Taron Johnson off the field.
No.
Taron Johnson needs to be on the field. I get when you want to be bigger and everybody talks about this 3 linebacker thing. I think if Dorian Williams is on the field, this is me. I always push for this. I used to say this about Tremaine Edmonds. Get him in the pass rush situation. Put him in as an extra pass rusher if you're going to do that on a D-line. I know that probably a coach might hear that and go, that's nuts. I think the guy has the physical ability to chase after somebody and get to the quarterback. I think that is a strength of his. I would love to see him on occasion. I know the Eagles did it. Several teams put a 5th defensive lineman on the field when you are playing against the Ravens. Some of that is a stand-up guy, just a 5th player up front. I wouldn't mind saying it.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I will push back. I think they will go 3 linebackers at times. They did it in the week 4 matchup. The problem was they didn't have the horses.
They didn't have the guys.
They didn't have the guys.
Yeah.
Like to have, you kind of thought in the dream scenario of having Milano and Bernard out there all the time, and then bringing in the hammer that is kind of Dorian Williams to fly downhill and make tackles. So, because when the Bills went to that 3 linebacker set more in week 4, then they just threw all past him because it's Balin Spector running down the field to cover Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
If you have Milano covering Mark Andrews, now you're in better shape. So I do think they will go heavier. And I think that's the willingness of Sean to make adjustments. This is a massive game in the legacy of Sean McDermott and his narrative.
Yes.
I know it's not a conference championship legacy, but it is big for his narrative in the postseason.
Absolutely.
And the other thing to keep in mind is we always talk about first drives, and you saw it in the Denver game. They are, I know it's a playoff game, but they are learning things in the early drives. Now, they know a lot about the Ravens, but that's when they make adjustments. They may come out. A lot of times you see it with an offensive lineman. Say they had to put a sub in and tackle. They may say, let's see how he holds up. before we decide to bring help.
Yep.
And they may see, and look, the Ravens are pretty straightforward with what they like to do offensively. You know that. But they may try it in different ways. And I think his athleticism could make a difference in the game.
Agreed.
Yeah, I hear that as well. All right, you mentioned some Ravens players. Let's go to Rashad Bateman and what you expect to see from him Sunday.
Like, he's at the time that we're recording this, it is uncertain Zay Flowers' status, and he has 30% of the team's receptions, 30% of the team's receiving yards. He's a massive part of their two-dimensional attack, the way that they can pressure you with man coverage. Because, look, if you play zone, Lamar can pick you apart. He's good enough as a passer now, so Bateman's the guy that's going to step up. He's a good player. Where he would rank if he was on the Bills, maybe the second or third best.
He's got
guy.
9 touchdowns this year.
Yeah. That's almost twice as much as Mac.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mac leads the
team.
Bills.
And look,
Yeah.
Lamar runs around, and then he finds Bateman, and that guy finds his spots. And I don't think he's a superstar, but when you look at it, they have Aguilar, they have Bateman. Like, they are not great at wide receiver,
Correct.
especially
But it's
with Flowers.
right,
with
without
Flowers.
Zay.
Yeah. So we'll, as you're watching this, like Dan said, you'll probably even maybe know more, and we will too at that point.
Mhm.
I'm not expecting Flowers to play based on what we've seen, but we'll see how it plays out. But I think Bateman is a good player, and I think he's been really good in this offense, certainly with all the attention that goes on Derrick Henry with Lamar.
I think like he does have just an obvious connection with Lamar.
Yes.
And they're able to find each other when plays break down, and just that's been huge. And that's someone that he's kind of relied upon as his safety blanket in those types of situations. All right, the final player to watch on Sunday, Mike, is Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, he is one of my favorite players in the league.
You loved him.
We talked to him in
loved him.
Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah, you were a big fan.
And I'm like, this kid, and I go back to, I was in Buffalo interviewing Ed Reed when he came in for a draft visit.
Wow.
Ed Reed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, Ed looks a little older than he is.
Yes. That's
Yes.
fair. That's fair.
He's got
That's
that
fair.
gray. I mean, I got gray. He's got a lot of gray.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, every time I see Ed Reed, he's making a play.
Mhm.
And then he ends up going to the Ravens. Like, some teams just have those guys. And
Yeah.
I think Kyle, I don't know what they were doing with him before.
Mm.
He belongs back there. He is a playmaking guy. I said to Dan, I don't know if it's allowed by league rules, but if the Bills were to win Sunday, they should be able to take Kyle Hamilton with them out to Kansas City if they have to play the Chiefs.
Love the new rule.
Just make it a rule.
Just
Yeah.
run it by
Listen.
Raj.
Yeah, just
Hey, Raj.
I bring him in next year. I would love that guy on.
Oh
I
my
wanted them
God,
to
yeah.
draft him. They get Kyrie Elam that year. Yeah.
So there's that. He is a phenomenal
they
player.
Traded up
No,
for Kyer.
He was on my draft board.
Mm-hmm.
I got to talk to Brandon. I've had some pretty good picks.
Get him on the patio. Let's get him back.
Now, Hamilton is a great player. He's an impactful player. And they had him in the slot more. I didn't understand that from that perspective.
Yeah.
I just love him in that, and he can track people down.
Yep.
He can take away guys over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I think he's a really, really good player.
He is very good. All right, we'll have plenty of post-game coverage on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Be sure to check us out there. For Mike Catalana and Dan
looks
Fitz. What?
Looks like you've been shrinking throughout the video.
Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Dan's yelling at me.
It
3,
wasn't me who got
2.
yelled at for moving.
No, I definitely moved. I got very casual. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have plenty more coverage on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.
Yeah, so Kyle Hamilton's like all over the
Okay,
field.
all right. Hey, maybe we should get new chairs for the studio.
I
I
vote
say
for that.
I say just a new studio in general.
Yeah. All right. We'll
Big
see.
things coming in 2025.
Dan's declaring that. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, I'm Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to follow us for postgame. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time on the Buffalo Plus channel presented by Connors and Ferris.